We're on plan to defeat, destroy, disable all of their meaningful military capabilities.
The U.S. Military Command made an emergency decision to move an additional 3,000 Marines to the Middle East border region. The order was urgent. Every available means of transportation was mobilized. At military bases across the country, Marines were already assembled and waiting at their assigned V-22 Ospreys on the flight line. They stood in full combat gear: body armor, helmets, rifles, loaded backpacks. When the order came, they immediately began landing. The Osprey's rear ramps were lowered. The Marines took their seats and buckled in. The ramps closed, the rotors spun, and the planes took off, heading for military ships already stationed in the region. These ships served as transfer platforms, where another group of Marines was already based and preparing to move to the Middle East. On those ships, preparation was already underway. Officers conducted rapid briefings in compartments below deck: emergency procedures, rules of engagement, contingency plans. The sessions were short and to the point. After the briefings, Marines moved to their stations and began preparing their weapons. Magazines were pulled from ammunition crates and loaded round by round. Rifles were function checked. Sidearms were loaded and holstered. Spare magazines were distributed and stuffed into plate carrier pouches. Machine gun teams assembled their weapons, mounted them on bipods, and test cycled the actions. The preparation was constant. Every man on the ship was either loading ammunition, checking gear, or receiving instructions. While this was happening at sea, one of the first Marine groups reached its drop-off point on the ground in the Middle East. The Ospreys landed, ramps dropped, and the Marines exited with their equipment. Their assignment was to establish a temporary camp that would serve as a staging base for all the units arriving after them. They had to build it from nothing. The soldiers unloaded their packs and supply crates from the aircraft. Camouflage netting was the first thing to go up, stretched over poles and stakes to break up the visual profile of the camp from the air. Next came the overhead shelters, canvas tarps rigged over metal frames to provide shade and protection from the elements. Then the digging started. Teams began excavating defensive positions around the perimeter: fighting holes, observation posts, vehicle revetments. Sandbags were filled and stacked. Fields of fire were cleared. Communication antennas were erected and contact was established with the command element. Within hours, what had been open desert was now a functioning forward camp with covered positions, defensive works, and a communications link to the fleet. On the ship's upper deck, Marines ran live fire drills. Targets were set up on the fantail, and shooters took turns running through combat marksmanship exercises. Between drills, they zeroed their optics and adjusted their sights, calibrating their weapons for the ranges they would be engaging at on the ground. The shooting continued in rotation. One group firing, the next group loading magazines, the next group cleaning weapons. At the same time, on military bases handling heavy logistics, the work was running at full speed. Forklifts and cargo loaders moved non-stop across the tarmac. Armored vehicles were driven up the ramps of C-17 transport aircraft and chained to the cargo bay floors. Pallets of ammunition, crates of rifle rounds, mortar shells, grenades, anti-tank missiles were loaded in behind the vehicles. Food supplies, water, medical equipment, spare parts, fuel bladders, portable generators, everything the Marines would need to sustain operations in the field was packed into the aircraft. The C-17s were loaded to capacity, one after another. As each aircraft was filled and the cargo secured, it taxied out and took off heading for the Middle East. More aircraft were already waiting on the ramp for their turn to load. The supply pipeline was open and running around the clock. Everything these Marines needed to fight would be waiting for them when they arrived.